Hi folks, welcome back. We're putting this section in before we start the haul table. Had several people comment that their benches weren't flat. They've been tempted to do it and it hasn't worked out for them. And you really need a flat bench. It's your most important tool. I often forget to mention that when I'm talking to people about the order in which they should purchase their tools. You need a good, flat, stable bench because it is your reference surface for all of your work, particularly in your dimensioning lumber. Now, can't say I'm looking forward to this. This is a lot of work. I have no idea how bad this bench is out, but I usually end up having to resurface my benches. I have two of them. I don't know, probably once every 5 to 7 years. You'd think they would stay nice and flat, but that's not always the case with wood. So what we're going to do is we're going to check it first with the winding stick, see what it looks like. I'm going to sharpen the blade, and I'm going to show you how to sharpen the blade so that you can pretty much ignore reversing grain. Don't have to deal with tear out. I don't want to have to get into scraping this. I want to be able to take it right from the bench plane. I've never sanded it. The reason I've never sanded my bench is then you don't have to deal with embedded grit from the sandpaper that will just take the edge off your plane blade that much faster. So I think the first thing we should do is get the winding sticks out, and then I'll sharpen the blade. I'll show you that little tip on using a steeper back bevel, and you can just do it by hand. I took all the bench dogs out. I'm just kind of doing this as a checklist for you, so you'll make sure you do these. I know some of the stuff may seem obvious, but mention anyway. Take the bench dogs out. I think the end of this handle, yeah, it is. It's just it sticks up a little bit higher than the bench top, so I may have to take that off so that I can flatten the top of the vise along with the bench top. So bench dogs are out. I cleaned it all off. Obviously, I took the bottom to the tool trays out so the shaving can just fall down through there instead of filling up in the tool tray. The back of the tool tray is an extension of our bench, so I want that to be at the same height. Got to pay particular attention to that when I do it. Can't think of anything else right off. If I do, I'll let you know as we go. So I'm going to take this handle off real quick. Robertson screwdriver. Going to make a new one of these for the other end. Broke off. We'll just set that aside. Put it right there. Okay, keep this out of the way. We already talked about winding sticks, so don't need a review there. Well, that tells me right away that I got a bump in the middle, and I've always dealt with that. When I built this bench, I used one great big plank, and I'm sorry I did. I don't do that anymore. As a result, this thing always seems to want to end up being convex. So it's wiggling there. This is okay. Bit of a hump there. Bit of a hump there. Bit of a hump there. Just going to switch these just in case it's the winding stick. No. So I definitely have a hump there. That's the reason why it's pivoting. Okay? I don't know how bad it is. Well, it was a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put that stick on there anyway and just have a look at this and see what it looks like. So I'm sighting down. That doesn't look so bad. If anything, it's just a little bit high on that end. I'll move this just to a couple of different locations and see if it's changed at all. A little bit suspicious of the tail vise because the tail vise has the ability to move up and down a little bit just because of the way it's made. You never work over top of that, by the way. Frick, you're at the wrong end if you want to see what I'm seeing. Now, that doesn't look bad at all. That actually looks right on. I can't create a problem to show you how to fix it, so what I'm going to end up doing then is just going in and resurfacing this. It's just time for it. It's getting beat up. A lot of marks all over it. But I'll try to address as best I can what you would do in various circumstances. So I know I have a high spot in here, so that's the first thing I'm going to tackle. So I'll go ahead and put these away. And we'll sharpen up this blade. Now I've got two blades for my number 8, and I'm using that because it's the plane of choice 7 or an 8 when it comes to dealing with a large surface. The long saw will reference off the high spots and help you bring them down to one level. Still requires skill. It just takes less skill with a longer plane than it does with a shorter one. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sharpen the plane blade the same way I normally would on the bevel side, and I'm going to pay particular attention to the corners to make sure we don't leave plane tracks. But on the back side, I'm going to put about a 20-degree back bevel. I'll just do it by hand. I'll show you how it's done. And if I want to change that at some point, I'll have to go in and regrind in order to get rid of it. But since I have 2 blades, then I don't worry about leaving this one as a designated blade for dealing with figured wood. I'm using my 1000 and my 30,000 stone. Just them flat real quick. Remember to keep this clean so it doesn't, grooves don't get filled up with the slurry as it dries. That's a fairly fresh, Jake, would you give me a piece of paper towel, please? That's a fairly fresh grinding on there, so it won't take long to create my secondary and tertiary. Set that down on the primary, raise up just a few degrees. Spend about 10 seconds. Nice even pressure along the cutting edge. As soon as I can detect a burr, I'm over here to the 30,000, find the primary, raise up a few degrees beyond the secondary. About 10 seconds on this stone. And then at the end of the 10 seconds, I'm going to make a very careful transition without changing the angle. And then bear down on one corner for about 4 seconds. And then the opposite corner for about 4 seconds. I want to have a little more pronounced back bevel than normal. Pardon me, out in the corners. I want to flare that or feather it just a little bit more than normal. Okay, I'm going to come over here to my 1000 grit stone. Now normally, we would do a back bevel just using a little thin steel rule. Instead, this time I'm actually going to set it down. I'm going to raise it up about 20 degrees or so. And then hold that angle. And I'll spend maybe 10-15 seconds. This is on the 1000 grit, which, remember, it is coarse enough that it will actually shape the metal. And I'm going to come over here to my 30,000. I'm going to go up just a little bit higher. So really you're putting a tertiary bevel on the back of this as well. You just want to make sure that where those two surfaces meet, back and the front, they've both been polished to the same level. Now this is going to increase the effort required to push the blade through the wood, but it's also going to help deal with any figured wood. And it's so small I couldn't even show you on there how tiny it is, but it'll work. Now Jake, grab me a felt tip, would you? I just want to write, here, I got one right here. I'm just going to write on the end of that HA high angle, so I'll remember. That's that new IBC blade. It's nice and thick and polished up. Really like it. Yeah, please. Put that about a 1/16 of an inch away. Right. Make sure that gets snugged up. Put that away too if you want. I'm not going to worry about the throat on this. If I do have a problem, I'll close it down later when I get into the final cuts, but for now I'm just worrying about hugging off the material. Fairly coarse cut. Okay, sight down the sole. Get that blade parallel. Jake, I actually need that screwdriver back. This is a little bit too loose. I'll just put it in my back pocket. That's better. I always judge how tight that needs to be based on how much effort it takes to make lateral adjustments. Okay, retract that blade. get it so that it appears to be parallel, and then pull it all the way in. Now you see my wax. Now, we've been doing some work on this bench there's been some abrasives on here, so if the blade doesn't hold its edge very long, that may be the reason why I'll have to stop and resharpen.